My team missed deadlines until I did this. With a service business, we're constantly teeter-tottering between the delivery and the marketing. And most service businesses don't actually have a marketing problem in the beginning. They have a delivery problem, which means that if you tried to 10x the number of clients that you had, you'd probably struggle to do that. So you need to be able to make sure your delivery is on point so you can scale that up, and then we can add more marketing in order to scale. And so I want to go through kind of 3 core concepts that's helped me with this and a whole bunch of sub points within them. So the first one is to prioritize your tasks in order of profitability of how they're actually going to help you. So if you think about it, you have a schedule for a person each day, and what do they actually need to do in order to return a profit for your business? If you have an employee and they're just doing tasks that are below their pay grade, then you might not actually be making your money back on them. So you have to think about the scheduling of this. For example, if you've got a dental clinic and your employee's just doing dental cleans and they're not doing that much cosmetic stuff, which is where the real money starts to come in, maybe you need to balance their schedule a little bit, or you push all that cosmetic stuff up to you and you have a dentist who is less experienced to do all the cleans and maintenance and that kind of thing. So you can balance your schedule in lots of different ways like that. Because we do marketing and like business growth for people, we think about what tasks we should be working on, what's the highest leverage point, because you can spend the day answering client emails, but that's not going to make the client any money, versus actually producing marketing for them that could be highly leveraged in forms of social media or ads or email marketing, that kind of thing. So you're trying to figure out where you should actually put your time and effort. Once you do that, you need a good project management system. So there's a whole bunch of online ones. We use Asana for us, and it's planning out what needs to be done, who's going to do it, and when it's going to be done by. And so that's obviously the first step in making sure that deadlines are hit, actually having a deadline and being clear on what the person has to do in that time. But it gets more complicated, obviously, as we layer into this. So that's kind of phase 1. You should have a list that your team member can look at every single day, and there's all their tasks listed out of what they need to be doing, when it needs to be done by, so they can look at it at the start of their day and they don't just dive into their emails and get lost in the minutiae of all these things that are on fire. So then we move to kind of part 2, which is time blocking. So I find this useful for myself and also for my team members, so you know that you're spreading your time across the right things that you want to be working on. For example, you can be, so a time block is basically like between 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. I'm working on this task, and then I'm going to, between 1 and 3, going to work on a different task and plan that out. So what that enables you to do is have a mix of important but not urgent tasks, and also the important but urgent tasks, so they fill the majority of the day, and then the non-urgent and non-important tasks start to fall off the radar and not get done at all. So in terms of like important but not urgent, it might be something that if you do it now, it might take you 3 months to build it. In EOS, the Entrepreneur Operating System, they call that a ROC, where it's a task that lasts a quarter and it's a bigger project that you want to work on a little bit every day or every week in order to move it forward. But it's not going to have a payoff for maybe 3 months until the whole thing is actually done. So you want to make sure that those are scheduled and time is blocked out for them. Then you've got your important but urgent task, which is the daily work that's actually important and needs to get done. And you need to prioritize that. So I like to make sure that the calendar is kind of blocked out in terms of, okay, in this time slot, this is what's being worked on. And you can look across the whole day and know where those tasks are going to fit into. Another thing, we work with obviously multiple clients at the same time, so our people are going to be spread across multiple clients. So that, and like working in companies where we had multiple brands to promote as well. So you're allocating time for the different clients throughout that as well. And so you can go, this time you're working on this client, this time Tuesday you're going to work on this client, and make sure that you're spreading that work evenly and that it works for both the client response time that you need and also the overall fairness of splitting up the client work. If you have one client who's a really like a squeaky wheel and keeps asking for a whole bunch of stuff, it's easy for them to grab a whole bunch of your team members' time versus spreading it across the people who actually trust you to do your work and aren't chasing you for deadlines, but you need to be pushing the ball forward on those. Otherwise you'll wake up to email where they quit a couple of months later. So balancing those out too. So time block your schedule to make sure that you're working on the highest priority tasks, whether they're urgent or non-urgent, and those are falling in. And then so if say 1 to 3 o'clock is working with a particular client on a Tuesday, then you would open up your task list that we talked about in step 1 and go, okay, what's the priority tasks that need to be done? And then you work through them in order of priority, not in order of how you feel about doing them, because you do all the tasks that are easy and skip all the hard ones, and then the hard ones just never get done. So you're using these two tools so they interact and make sure that you're pushing it all forward. And then the other thing to think about is high value and low value tasks. And so in your important, not urgent, hopefully you're filtering out those kind of things. But if your team member's schedule starts to get filled up with tasks that you could outsource or get someone else on your team to do for cheaper, then you need to balance that as well. Trying to help a client once and they kept getting rid of the low-level customer service person and then pushing that work up into people who were more highly paid. So the customer service person was well paid, and then it's like, well, now it's going up to this person who's even better paid, and then it's going up to this person who's even better paid, and it's just completely inefficient. You should be pushing the lower value tasks down to people at the appropriate pay grade so they can do them, and it keeps the profitability of your business. And yeah, profitability goes badly when you have people who are way overqualified doing the wrong tasks or the low value tasks. That's for other people who are starting out in their careers and then will develop into high value as they go. Then number 3 is kind of training. So this is where I also find a lot of, it's kind of headaches, but it's like the harder part of the process because it's a bit more fluffy, I guess. And so this is where communication comes in. So a lot of the times I find people, they think they're communicating, they're really just talking. So they talk at their team member and tell them a bunch of stuff to do, but the team member doesn't really understand what they want. So there's a communication breakdown. So proper communication is when what's said and what's understood is the same thing, versus you're just talking and they're like, oh, and they think that there's something else, that they took something else from your message because you weren't clear in the communication, like I'm kind of being now in this video. And so you want to make sure that you're giving clear instructions in terms of what the task is and how to do their work, and then providing accurate feedback on it as well. So let's split this down into a few things. So first is when you're handing over a task, there's a good model, it's called 10-80-10, where you do the first 10% and then they do the 80% in the middle, and you come back and do the 10% at the end. So if it's something where you require feedback on and it's a process or process task that you're handing off to them, and you need to define the task at the beginning because it's not a usual one, then that's the 10% of the work. So you really need to define what the output that you want looks like. So then when they go away and do the 80%, it's what you actually wanted. If you skip the first bit and like go do this, then the person doesn't really know how to achieve that. Having interesting conversations, we had through the Kung Fu school a trip to organize, and he'd gone and told someone who was like 18 or 20 to go organize a bus to take a bunch of people down there, and that person had no idea what that really meant, because it's like, well, what do I need to consider? How many people are going? How many seats do I need? Do we need a special license to drive it? Like, there's a whole bunch of when do we need to book it in order to get it so we can drive. And because they'd never been involved in anything like that, there were just so many tasks, mini tasks, subtasks in it, that it was massively confusing. Or if you tell someone who, like my wife is an event planner and is like, I need a bus booked for this, I can give her that vague direction and she'll ask all the questions she needs, go and get it done, or assume the right answers that even I don't have because of the experience of it. So make sure that you're giving clear guidelines to the skill level of the person that's doing it. Then you come back at the end and give the 10% of feedback. And so that shouldn't be making them redo the whole thing. You're trying to get good at your feedback so they're learning throughout the process and it's getting better and better. One of the things that helps me with feedback is, rather than just talking at someone, which I am known to do, it's getting them to write down notes and make a process out of the feedback that they're receiving. So then they build a checklist for next time so they don't make the same mistakes twice. Rather than fix one individual email or an ad or whatever it is, you want to build a process for them so they don't make the same mistake twice. Or the mistake gets more refined, and then as your checklist gets more refined as well. And so paying attention to that detail that you want will help, especially in tasks that are going to be done over and over again. You really want to make sure that there's a process for it so they get better at doing the task rather than making the same mistakes over and over again. That frustrates you, it frustrates them, and no one's happy. You also have like a building of experience by giving that feedback. So if you think about it, like we have it in marketers come out of doing their study and they don't really know how to do marketing in the real world, so they get trained in doing marketing. But even in things like, if we go back to our dentist, you get a dentist who has a degree, that doesn't mean that they're an expert dentist, because there's only so much that a course can teach, and then the experience is going to build on that. And so like maybe there's bedside manner, but bed like the chair by chair manner that you want that person to get, of like, well, this is what I say to people to get them comfortable, this is what I do, this is how I speed up the process, this is how I get all my equipment ready beforehand, all these different things that might speed up and make the process easier for that person, but they haven't been specifically trained in when they did their degree. And also the nuances of it when they hit different cases during the process where it's like, well, this is different to normal. How do I deal with that? How do I think through this problem to get an answer without having to run off and ask you a question all the time? If you're not doing this, then you're not developing your people to the next level so they can build more experience, and then you can move up too as you bring in more inexperienced people underneath them that move through the same journey. So everyone has this career progression upwards. A lot of the time managers seem to hold people down rather than train them and lift them up, which does not help. I think that kind of covers everything. So this is a bit all over the place, but think about, how do you increase that capacity? What would happen if you got an influx of new clients? How would you actually deal with them? If you start building that now and building up these processes when you're quieter, then it allows you to do more marketing, get more clients. It's hard to fix these problems when you're too busy because you're already running around after client delivery. You want to use the lulls in order to build it, and then go through this cycle where it's like, get more clients, fix delivery, get more clients, fix delivery. And that might be going back to our dentist again. It's like, oh, maybe we need another dentist in here because we know we can get more clients, so let's bring in another dentist. For that, I need another chair and equipment and stuff like that. And you can work through that cycle. What's your cash flow look like in order to make the first dentist profitable to help pay for the second dentist, and then build it up that way. Like that, I map all that out in my business, and you should be doing the same in order of knowing how profitable each team member is going to be, and when you can afford to hire the next one, and then market yourself and bring in more people. If you don't do that, you're stuck in the same business, and you're going to be a similar size, and you rely on the same kind of clients showing up and the same delivery, and you're not fixing either side. You can't increase your marketing because you can't deliver, and you can't deliver more because you don't have good marketing. So you need to balance those two and get it going, and then you can build a business that can actually scale beyond you, get you out of the delivery completely, so you have more free time and can grow a business that doesn't depend on you.